Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. A little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.
Hola, bon dia, alegria. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show live stream and podcast. How are you today? Well, I hope. Do let us know in the chat. James will be with us, of course, at 9 a.m. this morning with his Mindful Migration Monday insights and his reflections on being here himself as an American and helping you move to Portugal successfully and settle in when it comes to those psychological and psychotherapeutic angles on moving to Portugal. Yeah, the ever popular Mindful Migration Monday with James Holley, and something new for you today. How are you? Do let us know, and let us know if you're struggling with this particular condition. Are you IB curious? Now, some people love Portugal, some people love Spain, and some can't decide. And it's thought that maybe 1 in 100 people struggle with this condition. You might be Iberian, and we've got something for you today at 10 o'clock. When really I should be going off to have a cup of coffee. I'm inspired to be piloting a new phone-in. I know the largest phone and biggest phone in Europe was perhaps a little too immodest and bold and brave as a plan. So we are going to be starting with, we're going to wind it in a little bit, pull it back to Iberian FM. And we're going to be exploring our relationship with our Spanish neighbors, including Gibraltar, Andorra. We might go to Andorra at some point, and a little bit of France as well, which is of course part of the Iberian Peninsula. So do stay tuned for that. Veronica, the American in Portugal, will be joining us at 10 a.m. this morning. Everything okay, Mrs. M, bursting into the studio? What?
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Just started the show. Everything okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'd love a cup of coffee. Thank you very much. Marvelous. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, there you go. There's the hand. Well, there's another hand, look, bringing me a fresh pair of underpants as well. It's amazing what you can do these days, isn't it? Is that probably created with Chat GPT as well, like everything else at the moment? So, yes, so stick around until 10 this morning. We'll be launching Iberian FM, the phone-in. And if you're Iberian and proud to be so, this is the place for you. Or if you just want to explore being IB curious, then join us from 10 a.m. American in Portugal, Veronica. I've missed an apostrophe off there, haven't I? Got to attend to the ticket. Hold on just 1 minute. I forgot to put a little apostrophe after American in Portugal, which of course is what she calls herself, Veronica. She's got a really hard to pronounce surname. So that's why I'm glad to be able to call her American in Portugal, Veronica. How was your weekend? Mine was interesting. A lot of stuff around the homestead. I put a drill into my finger. Whilst trying to, I've got a little. Some of you DIYers will like this, and you'll be able to say, "Nah, you shouldn't have done it like that. You should have done it like this, mate." Oh, Marcus is here. Good morning to you. Facebook user Pete in T Duck. Good morning to you, T Duck. Andy's in as well. Andy Klein and Victoria Benson, of course. T Duck, fantastic comment and content this morning. And Coach Turner was in at 7:56. Off to do a bit of child wrangling today, as he does at the beginning of the week, but still leaving us a God Squad tip of the day. Where was I going before I interrupted myself with all your comments? I was talking about Victoria, wasn't I? Oh, Nunu's here as well. Look, Nunu's just arrived. Good morning, amazing community. Great to see you, Nunu. How are you this morning? To the way. Como estás? Do let us know. No, James, pleased to see you. James with me at 9 o'clock this morning. Okay, let's have a look at the God Squad tip of the day, because I actually can't remember now where I was going whilst I interrupted myself saying hello to all of you this morning. Do let us know how your weekend went. Oh, yes, putting a drill into my finger. That's what I was saying, wasn't it? Okay, so outside, back porch, as it were, there are some lights, some outside lights. And I had a little bit of trouble because I was jet washing my back passage. And sorry. And I splashed an electrical socket, and nobody has got time for that, as they say on some popular memes, which blew a fuse, which didn't a circuit breaker, which didn't want to start up again. So I had to isolate that circuit breaker, which meant I didn't have outside lights either for a little while, and the sockets to a back room. Eventually sorted that out, maybe the weekend after that. And then it came round to changing the lamps inside the lights that are connected all in the same ring, mate. And the person, and you know this person, but I won't name and shame here. But the person who changed the lamps or did a little bit of maintenance on the outside lamps last time painted them and sealed the screw cap covers that you would ordinarily unscrew and lift off to change the lamps. He painted the whole lot, so they were jammed shut with paint. And it gave me quite a job. I had to dismount them from the wall and then crack them open. And the little bolts that were holding the caps on. Bear with me. I think some DIYers might like this. Other people are thinking, "Oh my God, do we really need to know about him jet washing his back passage and changing the lamps out the back there, so to speak?" I had to drill them out, and I drilled them out. I don't have a vise. I do have vices, but I don't have a vise. And I slipped trying to drill these these bolts out and put the drill into my finger. Not very deeply, it has to be said. But it's probably better. It's a bit like chopping things in the kitchen, isn't it? It's better to use a sharp knife. Best to use a sharp drill if you're going to be drilling your finger. Mission accomplished anyway, finally. The lamps have been changed and my finger's healing nicely now. Did you do any DIY at home this weekend? That was me anyway, but a fantastic and relaxing weekend, culminating in roasting a few marshmallows over the barbecue, which I set up for the kids, and hot chocolate before bedtime last night. Very nice weekend. Very nice weekend. Saw the Ducks. Great to see you, the Ducks, in Caldas on Friday, and to see that amazing Caldas de Rainha Easter Park. Now, Portugal getting ready for Easter, of course. Pascoa. Everyone is getting ready all over the country for Easter fairs and processions and the celebration of Easter. And certainly they've got off to a good start with a Alice in Wonderland type theme park effort at Caldas de Rainha, which is no place to be if you have been frightened by human-sized bunnies, big eggs, or anything of that kind as a teenager or younger. However, if you have, James, of course, with us from 9 o'clock this morning. Let's see how you're doing. Let's see if anyone else drilled their finger over the weekend. What have you been up to? Productive or a nice lazy weekend? We're having a nice, easy, like a Monday morning start here. Ian Turner, Coach Turner, was in just before 8. Bon dia, Gumpers, and welcome to another week. That's a nice greeting, isn't it? Hopefully filled with joy and happiness. That is how we roll here. Thank you, Coach Turner. Welcome to another week, hopefully filled with joy and happiness. Child wrangling today, so we'll catch up later. Have a great one. That's lovely. And the God Squad tip of the day from him. We haven't done this for a while. Hold your lighter up if it's safe to do so. Bring back all the jingles. Ding. God Squad tip of the... Oh, yeah. Forgot about that. That's why I don't play it, because it's extra bit at the end. I don't know where that comes from. God Squad tip of the day. Exercises you can do sitting down this week. Ooh, handy. On a dining chair or similar, sit with a good posture and simply lift your knees up to your chest. Build up to 3 sets of 10. And we want to see the pictures of this one. This is fantastic. You may have got yourself a lazy boy recliner, but still, you can do this, can't you? With those recliners, you can set them, can't you, to put you in an erect posture. And then you'll be able to simply lift your knees up to your chest, build up to 3 sets of 10. Do that slowly, please. And if it hurts, stop. Seek medical attention. If it's really bad, call a paramedic. Great for the core and stomach muscles, that particular exercise. You could do one knee at a time, couldn't you, as well? Mix it up a little bit. That's fantastic. And don't knock your cup of tea or cocoa over. That's gently or wine, of course, I know you lot, that's resting on the arm of the chair. Very good. Excellent stuff. Let us know how you get on with that. And if you think, oh, these are for other people, a bit like speaking Portuguese or the God Squad tips of the day, no, it's for you. But we've gone to a lot of effort to do these for you. Coach Turner has, and they're also being immortalized over on the GMP VIP HQ. Look at all this that we've got on over there. You can see the Gentle Fitness for Bon Viveurs, John Heimbach's Beginner's Guide to Investment Furnishing, the GMP VIP area, Portuguese factoids. We put all the factoids, the Ugonunos, the Quem Sabia information over on the GMP VIP platform. My contacts, useful information, and the wines we've been tasting. We're building up that treasury over there at GMP VIP HQ. Talking of the wine we're drinking tonight, we have that treasury is developing with all the old videos over there. If you want to catch up on a particular wine and what we thought about it, we're doing that tonight as well. So this will be added to the GMP VIP HQ platform and the wine selections. Here we go with the Alto Pina. And now I couldn't get this. I could only get the Reserva, but I'm not complaining. I got another Pegoi Stubal red, which was really good. Me and Mrs. M enjoyed that yesterday. And I'm also enjoying very much that. What's that? That American style lager. Oh, I forget the name now. Can anyone help me with that? I think it's brewed by Superbock. But anyway, it's a really nice brew as the weather warms up. Got some real flavor on it. But tonight, let's see if this has got any flavor. The Alto Pina Vinhas Velhas. I might try and get this actual one later on today. But if I can't, I'll be drinking the Reserva. Join us at 8 p.m. this evening with the Good Morning Portugal Wine Club. Food, wine, and good times every first Monday of the month. And of course, we'll be having a little bit of a life and death cafe with Mama Bear before that. It's quite a good timing, isn't it? So we can talk about our concerns and ideas about life and death from 7. That's a VIP invite only because it's a closed group and a supportive one at that with Mama Bear, who also has managed to do the deal. And we are talking to Stephen Jenkinson on Friday, that amazing man who wrote Die Wise, incredible fellow when it comes to talking about life and death. Stephen Jenkinson joining us on Friday. So packed this week. Wine tasting tonight, Life and Death Cafe from 7 before that, wine tasting at 8. And Stephen Jenkinson live from Canada for a special show. And not really a Good Morning Portugal thing, more of a barefoot broadcast thing. That'll be I think it's 9:30 this coming Friday evening, 7th of April, as we go into the Easter weekend. That's pretty appropriate, isn't it? Okay, let's see what T-Duck's up to as well this morning. Okay, tal amigos. Bon dia, alegria campus, T-Duck. From T-Duck there, the weather forecast is calling for another beautiful week in paradise. Oh, yes. Meetup's going to be great then this week, isn't it? In San Martín de Porto, where, oh my goodness, we have the most beautiful hotel that's just opened up. Anyone coming to San Martín de Porto for the meetup this week might like to have a look at the new, what was the Il Capital Hotel. Was it called Il Capital? That's not Portuguese, is it? The Capital Hotel, anyway, has now been renovated. It has the Gatsby Bar, and it has the Storytellers Hotel. And all the rooms are themed. I'm just hastily loading these beautiful rooms. I was given a sneak preview by the owner, Mark. I walked past there on Saturday, hoping that I'd be able to pop in for this opening. And it wasn't a public opening, so to speak. It was more of an exclusive affair. But I stuck my hooter up against the window, and he let me in and gave me a quick tour. It was really superb. And I'm just trying to show you the rooms now. Oh, these beautiful. I don't know if the pictures that I've taken here with my phone do it justice, but this is the Storytellers Hotel with the Gatsby Bar. The menu looks fantastic. Do check it out when you're in town, or even come for a special event. Make it a special event staying at the Storytellers Hotel. Let me just see if I can bring these onto the screen for you. Anna, who we speak to once a month on a Monday, who tells us that Portuguese isn't really that difficult if you go about it in the right way, has also been creating a fantastic course, a 3-day course that she talked about, right? Remember that? And she will be, I hope, popping on to talk more about that. She's developed a 3-day immersion into Portuguese language and culture. And I mean, maybe you could stay at this fantastic hotel as part of that as well. Let me just bring the pickies onto the screen then of the Storytellers Hotel. I think this was the Agatha Christie room. They've all got the great names of great storytellers. This is the Agatha Christie room shower ensuite, and that's the bedroom there. You see, My fisheye lens hasn't done that justice, but that is so beautiful. You're right on the beach, pretty much on the Marginal there at the Storytellers Hotel, with Gatsby Bar included. It is fabulous. I'm gonna go to their website and show you that later on this week. I think a really good development for San Martino de Porto, a really upmarket restaurant, great place to stay for a special treat in this wonderful town where we live here. Aldous Huxley then. And with a few deep thoughts this week for the next few weeks, in fact. Most of the deep thoughts will be from Aldous Huxley. Deep thought today from him then: the propagandist's purpose is to make one set of people forget that certain other sets of people are human. My goodness, we're seeing that in the world at the moment, aren't we? Aldous Leonard Huxley was an English writer and philosopher. His bibliography spans nearly 50 books, including hotels and non-fiction. Did I just say hotels? I did. I don't think his work included hotels, including novels and non-fiction works, as well as essays, narratives, and poems. Thank you very much. So expect more Aldous Huxley in the coming days and weeks. Deep thoughts abound from that mind and mouth. Portuguese saying, Águas de Abril são muito de milho. Now, I thought this was going to be em de Abril Águas Mil, which I impressed some Portuguese people with yesterday. It was a little smattering of rain when we called in at pit stop in San Martino de Porto yesterday. They were quite impressed that I knew that, and I thought that's what this Portuguese saying of the day would be. But no, Águas de Abril são muito de milho. April waters are corn mills, so heavy rain expected in April every year in Portugal. It's quite normal to have April showers, and sometimes heavy enough to grind corn, I think is what that Portuguese saying is there. Quem sabia this morning, who knew in Portugal, the Livro de Reclamações, the complaints book, allows any consumer to report in writing a dispute or claim taking place with a commercial establishment or service provider. The consumer can express his or her dissatisfaction. I spelt dissatisfaction incorrectly over the weekend. 2 S's. I put it right. The consumer can express his dissatisfaction with a product or service by mentioning his grievances in the pages of the book in question. The Livro de Reclamações, everybody. You might have seen it. I noticed that fairly early on in my life here in Portugal. What's that about? Then you'd be in a cafe waiting for a cup of coffee, and you'd see that they have, Livro de Reclamações. Here, you can ask for it. Which seems slightly negative, doesn't it? Like a poor start to a relationship to have that threat hanging in the air, but it is it's required by law. It is then the obligation of the business to transmit each page of the book to the competent authorities, who will judge the merits of the claims, sometimes with significant consequences. Isn't that amazing? That's what you can have in this country. You can make a complaint about something, and it will be passed on to the competent authority. I wonder if they've got a Livro de Reclamações in case you don't like what that so-called competent authority comes up with. But they judge. I wonder how long it takes, and whether your coffee's gone cold by the time you've complained about it. I imagine that process takes quite a long time. And I imagine the people there are of a certain disposition. Can you imagine if you've worked all your life in the Livro de Reclamações department? Wouldn't it be great? I wonder if we can get talking to like Portuguese friends here. If you know anybody in Portuguese bureaucracy, especially that department, do you think they would talk to us here on the Good Morning Portugal show? Quite amazing. I bet they haven't got that in Spain. And that's why I prefer Portugal to Spain when it comes to being curious and Iberian. I think I'm firmly Portuguese. However, we will be exploring what it's like on the other side of the border from 10 o'clock every morning. We'll see how that goes. Bom dia, campers, from James. He'll be with us in a little while after his wonderful theme tune that puts lead in our pencil, wind in our sail, and a spring in our steps. Como foi o vosso fim de semana? Como foi o vosso fim de semana? How was your weekend? Very good. Muito bem, obrigado, James. See you soon, mate. Hola, bon dia from Owen, who I know was busy this weekend. Oh, Peter, what are you like? Dad joke warning. I think there's quite a smattering. I can't read these out, Peter. You're so naughty. But people will be seeing them, won't they? Because they can access the chat for themselves. And I should issue one of these. Where is it? A trigger alert for sure. Not the trigger alert. The dad joke
warning.
I think, warranted this morning. James will be bringing a real barrel scraper of a visual Star Trek themed dad joke with him this morning. And my kids are pushing back, actually. You know, the classic, Dad, I'm hungry. Oh, hi, hungry. Pleased to meet you. They are working on some retorts to that. They're so fed up with that they're working on their own material. They've threatened me with new material to push back with that particular classic. Which of these can I read, Pete? Okay, dad joke warning. The first few weeks of Weight Watchers, you're just finding your feet. That one's safe enough, isn't it? Not the others that he's put on the screen. The rascal. Good morning, everyone, from Andy Klein and Victoria Benson. Hola, bon dia, kids from a sunny Portimao. Good to be in touch with you. I've got a feeling Victoria is a Iberian. When I suggested we might have a Iberian Pride Week for those people who are proudly Portuguese and Spanish, I think she's a Iberian every day of the week, every week of the year, every month of the year, all day long. FM, no static at all. Yes, Iberian FM. Do we like the name? Let me just have a read of Pete's content that he's putting onto the screen while we say hi to Marcus. I'm not sure about that one. Bon dia a todos. First mosquito bites have arrived. Oh, okay. Dad joke warning and mosquito warning as well in VRSA. They love me wherever I am in the world, but currently still in VRSA. Is that you, Dougie, down there? FU Facebook user. Nuno in, of course. Antonio Effin as well. Effin. He's not effing. He's Antonio F, and he's in. This is starting to sound like a football song. Good evening from Hawaii. Aloha to you, Kokikoyo. Great to have you here. That didn't go unnoticed by Mrs. M. Oh, and yes, a quick point of order, Chairman. If you are watching this on replay, as most people tend to do, then please ask questions. Please don't feel like you're a different community when you're watching on catch up. I know it's not quite the same because you haven't got the banter and filthy comments live from people the likes of Pete. But if you are, please feel involved by still asking questions, making comments and suggestions on 913-590-303. Add to my bulging mailbag, if you will, and send me questions, and then we'll respond to them on here. So make sure your name's on there, and we'll say, like Dave in California was watching the replay, and he was asking questions like this, questions that we'll put to James when he arrives. This is one I saw on Facebook. I love these, and this was in a this wasn't in an open Facebook group, so I can't accredit the person who asked it, because I don't know if they want to be accredited or made famous for this. But I thought it was a great question. If you're Dave in California and you've got questions like this, send them to me on WhatsApp, 913-590-303, the code. Please give tips about how to dress and act so we don't get pegged as tourists. Take off that Hawaiian shirt for starters, that oversized Hawaiian shirt, other than the obvious ones like not taking selfies in pedestrian traffic. Thanks in advance. I'm sure James will have something to say about that. If you've got any questions at all, please, should I wear footwear like this, my Adidas trainers? Flip-flops, my thongs, I think the Americans call them. Should you wear those or not as a tourist, I wonder? I think you can probably only buy those as a tourist. You're not good. James is in the green room. He's already thinking about which socks to wear with those. So do get those questions in. Please don't feel left out if you're watching on replay, because as I say, by far and large, the majority of people who watch this show, he's showing me his socks now. Stop it, James. You might end up doing some impromptu God squaddery on that chair of yours, or even falling off. Build up slowly, and if it hurts, stop. Good advice in life. Please don't feel left out because you don't watch the live stream. Be part of the live stream. Ask your questions. 913-590-303. The same number, of course, for the Iberian phone-in, coming at 10 for the first time today. There's that number, 913-590-303. Okay, where were we in the chat before we welcome James this morning? Boa semana novo a todos. Happy New Week to everybody from Francis to Portugal Sun. Hope you all had a great weekend. Apart from drilling my finger, I'm fine. Lee's also in, probably stopping for a cigarette and a coffee. Back to work for a rest, because I know he's been busy over the weekend with Jason. Any pics, Lee, of the shop erection that you guys were working on together? I think the first job that you attended to was chilling the beer, if I know you and your colleagues. I hope it went well. Best keep your day job, Carl. Yes, drilling my finger like that. The Mancunian Gardener. That's such a good name for the feature film of his life, isn't it? The Mancunian Gardener. Sounds a bit like the Manchurian Candidate, but with an agricultural setting. Sitting in a dining chair, simply lifting your soup spoon to your mouth and repeat until your soup is gone. It all counts. Now, I think a potato sack could be quite complicated as a maneuver. Let's try explaining that to the paramedic when they arrive. Jess is in as well. Only a kid's wheelbarrow. What's this? Where have we gone? Oh, I put a small 50-kilo bag of sea salt into my wheelbarrow, and it promptly collapsed. It is harder than you may imagine finding wheelbarrows that fit into a Model 3 Tesla. It would seem. So that's a lot of sea salt as well there. You've got big slugs in your garden, I wonder. They don't come bigger than the man who's joining us in just a moment, who's recoiling at the very thought of being anywhere near salt. He has to ask the waiter to move it off the table. The salt is bothering me. Would you mind moving it? I wonder if Mick Jagger ever tried using a complaint book. Very good. Oh, you're on fire this morning, everybody. Greetings from the Algarve and Paul Richards. Thank you, Mrs. M, for my cup of coffee this morning. Am I going to tell the truth? She says, I do not know to what you are referring. Greetings from the Algarve. Sunny today, but maybe I will. Yes. You want to hear my confession and my contrition. Greetings from the Algarve. Sunny today, but maybe a hint of rain tomorrow. Just a little 17-degree day today. Lucky you, Paul. Lots of love to you in the south. Like that bangers and mash button. Very, very good. Nicely done. And yes, smash that like button. Why not? Let's see. Do we know if it does anything or not? And even if it does or it doesn't, we still get some satisfaction from doing it. Unlike Mick. I'm fine, thank you, says Antonio F. With a weather report from a bit further up the country. 17, 18 is the maximum temperature for today in the Azores. Is that where you are? And talking of bulging sacks, have people asked for your complaints, but not recently, thankfully. Good morning. It's a beautiful day in Portugal. We arrived back here on Saturday. Hello, Vision Portugal Dream. Now, I was thinking, as well as inviting people to get involved with the show, even if you're not watching live, to send us a message, to also tune in like Vision Portugal Dream has done. You know, when you're driving down the motorway in a foreign country and you see an advert for a radio station and you tune in and it becomes possibly the soundtrack of your vacation. You can do that with Good Morning Portugal as well. When you arrive here in Portugal, don't forget to tune in the morning, even if it's just for a few minutes, because I know your schedule will be busy with your scouting trip or your sightseeing, but please drop in and say hello, just like Vision Portugal Dream has done here. So great to see you. Beautiful day in Portugal. We arrived back here on Saturday. How are things at the airport? Okay, I hope. And bon dia, tourish. Bob is here as well. Now, Bob, I think, had an interesting reaction to the story that went out the day after March the 31st. I'll refer to it like that. And there was a certain article in the Portugal Resident, which I had a little bit to do with. And then Bobby O'Reilly and I responded to it live on Saturday morning, which has had about 500 views now of people interested in the new platinum upgrade to Portugal's golden visa. Now, as it turns out, you won't be getting free electricity or a lifetime supply of pastel de natas or even a gold-plated residency card with that, or 15 years tax-free, or the Prime Minister's firstborn. It was an April Fool prank. And a lot of people went for it in various ways, ranging from really loving it and getting in the April Fool spirit. Some people were a bit offended because it was seen to be in poor taste. And I get that, looking at what happened actually in the capital on Saturday. It got a bit riotous at the march about the housing crisis in Portugal. So I do understand how Bobby and I couldn't have known that was going to happen. So we apologize to anybody who, well, I certainly do. I can't speak on his behalf, but I do apologize for any offense caused in the current climate. No offense was meant. And in fact, as I wrote it, I intended it to be quite an amount of searing political pushback and a little bit of satire going on there that was aimed at the people who could do something about this situation and maybe aren't doing the best job of it at the moment. So we had fun and we caused a bit of offense, but I suppose that's what's supposed to happen, isn't it, with an April Fool? Mrs. M, is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. She's standing over me, making me do it. Okay, let's play the music. Let's play the music. Can you just say?
It's amazing how believable it was, because like a lifetime supply of pastel de natas.
You'd have thought, wouldn't you? A lifetime supply of pastel de natas would have. Yeah, the two people. The two people named in the article, João Factor, and Zay No More, were a bit of a giveaway too, weren't they? Sorry if you fell for it. Let's play the music. Bom dia, alegria. Tudo bem?
Bom dia. Como foi o teu fim de semana?
Muito bem, obrigado. Apart from the parafusar incident.
Yeah, don't change your day job.
Thank you for that, Wally. I do like, I changed a tire last Thursday, I think.
Yes, quite the man.
Yeah, stripped up.
At the missus. Yeah, my man.
Yeah, there he is. At the end of the weekend, there he is again, the alpha male drilling his finger.
The Homer Simpson version of our man.
Yeah. No. But all's well that ends well. How are you? Did you get up to any DIY shenanigans yourself this weekend?
No do-it-myself stuff. No. Let's see. Weekend being the past 2 days. Got out for a good walk yesterday. Spent yesterday was a busy day. Spent the typical 5 or 6 hours doing the grocery shopping in the morning to the afternoon, and then took a walk in the afternoon with my friend Stefan, which was very nice. Beautiful day. Loving being able to choose what I do every day. It's just an amazing way to live a life.
Yeah, good for you. I'm so pleased for you. That's lovely. And of course, you offering advice to others on doing the very same here on a Mindful Migration Monday. Thank you, James, for your continued service here. Your own personal reflections.
It's always my pleasure.
Well, thank you for being here. And here you are responding to anyone else's questions about having a successful move over to Portugal. And I'm sure you would join me in extending an invitation to those who can't join live, but would have a question nonetheless. And they can send it to us, can't they? 913-590-303. And we'll respond to it. When it comes into the mailbag, we'll put it up on the screen on a Monday and we'll deal with it. So don't feel left out. If you're not part of the live stream. Go on.
One of my most used words now, perfeito.
Oh, me too. Now, what happens when you use that? For me, I'm just thinking, I'm transferring my British mindset and how I am, personality-wise, punctuating the conversation with perfect. Perfect. Sometimes people look at me and I'm not sure if it's the pronunciation or if I'm using it in the wrong context. How's that working for you with Portuguese people?
I don't really know. Sidonio used to laugh every time I said it. And finally I checked in with Louisa. I said, why does he always laugh? Am I saying it wrong? Or is it not a word? Why is he laughing? And she says, oh, no. She says, it's fine. It's just your accent.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's the same for me then.
Because I tend to emphasize, and what I'm learning about language which is actually a great segue because I wanted to follow up on a couple things we said 2 weeks ago around language. But there's a certain lilt and sort of the way things are phrased and said are different than they are in our native language. So when I say perfect, it's like perfect, like, yeah, that's how I say it. Yeah. But that's not a Portuguese way of saying things. And I think that's what got Sidonio laughing, because I go, perfeito, yeah. Perfeito, perfeito. And he's like, that's so hilarious.
Yeah, I get the same response. And it's like, whoa, that's a bit over the top, mate. Wind it in a bit.
Yeah.
You and me both know it's not perfect, so stop saying it.
Yes. Well, we're having a lot of fun playing with obrigadinho now, because there's what I've learned about the Inha type words is they can be kind of affectionate or they can be an insult, and it really just depends on how you say it. So now we're playing with the sarcastic obrigadinho versus the serious obrigadinho, and instead of using obrigada, which we normally do. So Sidonio is a hilarious guy. We have a lot of fun playing with the language. He doesn't speak English as well as Luisa, so he struggles to understand me. I struggle to understand him, and so we get playful, and it's fun.
Fantastic.
It's another way to learn a language. Have fun with it. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. That does sound like a lot of fun, and everybody should have a Portuguese language buddy of that kind who will take the time out to listen and laugh.
Yeah.
With you at you.
Absolutely. Absolutamente. Sim.
Perfeito. Sim.
Perfeito. Excelente.
I think Portuguese people might go more for a push, mightn't they, to punctuate rather than describing anything as perfect.
My sense of push is it can be used so many ways. I still haven't got my head around it, but how I hear it usually is mostly a calm, sort of like or not even necessarily an agreement. It's like I hear you, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's an emphasis. Push, or push. Okay, what does that one mean?
Use it. No, there are. I think there's a whole. It's a bit like Ipa, isn't it? It has multiple uses. So I think if you want bang for buck with certain Portuguese words, push would be in there. Ipa as a little phrase you might have as well. Even bon dia, in the many ways of saying goodbye. That's a lot of good value vocabulary in there, isn't it? Because I was thinking about this the other day when I'm walking down my street or into town, and I love it how in Portugal people greet each other with a "Olá, bom dia," and there might be just a "bom dia," or there might be "Olá, bom dia," and it
dia, bom dia,
elaborate, or an old guy who might just say "dia."
You barely hear it. You go, do I actually answer that or just go push? I mean, I don't know. What's
like growl back? But it's so beautiful. It's not just customary and delightful. There's a whole range as well, isn't there, to tune into, I suspect, which after a few years you might understand the nuance. But these are the things to learn that give you the bang for buck, the ipas, the push, the bom dias. Anything else that you might add to that list, James?
Well, not right off the top of my head. I just started getting into accents, like what is an accent? And so much of the accent is not having the same melodic reproduction of the language, having a different flow, a different sort of lyrical sound to it. So Americans tend to emphasize things and, can be over animated, which is not typically the Portuguese way of expression. Right. The way we ask questions, the way we raise at the end can be slightly different in how it's done in Portuguese. So that's where the accent comes from. It's like, oh, he's asking a question, he's saying the words correctly, but there's a different feel to how he says it. And it's like, okay, learning the language. To me, I spend a lot of time talking about language because I'm really interested in it and I'm really trying to learn it. And the whole concept of language is fascinating to me, which goes to a couple of points I wanted to make. One was we were talking about the whole A1, A2, and Anna was saying, don't worry about that. And of course, I brought in the question of, well, if we are concerned with becoming permanent residents and or citizens, and we need to acquire whatever the definition of an A2 level is. So we can't just completely ignore it. But in that, what I keep thinking is, if I continue just doing what I'm doing, and I'm not even as dedicated as I should be to the actual academic part of learning a language. I'm talking about language, I'm interacting with Portuguese people, I'm attempting now in texts with English-speaking people who I also know are learning Portuguese, or Portuguese people. I start with, can I say this in Portuguese? Because I have the time to work it out on a keyboard, where when I'm hit with it, it's like, what? So to me, it seems almost impossible, if I keep doing what I'm doing, that I'm not going to manage an A2 level in 5 years. I mean, that just seems like a really low bar to me. And I say that mostly so that people who get really anxious about it, it's like, relax, just keep dedicated to the language, to learning it in any way you can, learning songs, talking to Portuguese people, whatever it is, and you'll get there. It's not going to be this big horrible thing that you need to get done. Relaxing around the language, I think, is important. And it's also important to remember that language is like music. The music came first, then the music theory, and we broke the music down after the fact. We were singing songs and making music long before we understood notes and phrases and keys and all that other stuff that we know now about music. Language is the same thing. Language came first, grammar came later, right? We broke it down after the fact. We first started grunting and trying, saying things in awkward ways and getting confused, and then correcting that. So how can we say that better? And eventually we got to where we're at now, and we can explain all that stuff. So
coffee. I guess we invented coffee, and then the grunting kind of got improved a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah. Tim Allen, and I'm always his caveman language is always grunting and pointing,
which of course we've resorted to here.
Like, did you understand what I just said? I want that over there to eat. Yeah, see.
Oh, look, here's some great counsel, James, coming in about the obrigadinho. So obrigado, of course, thank you, and obrigada for the female version. Obrigadinho, a little thank you, and muito obrigado, thank you very much. But skip, be careful. I think it's advanced conversation to be using obrigadinho as
exactly my point. Yeah, it can mean, oh, thank you so much. That was so sweet of you. Thank you, and you can mean it, or it can mean, oh, thank you so much for nothing. That was so sweet. Not really, you stupid fool.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you have to kind of be careful. So this is where Sidonio and I are playing with it, because we use obrigadinho now with a really sarcastic, like, obrigadinho. It's like, just to play with it and toy with it. Anyway, yes, thank you, Antonio. I've come to understand, be careful with those inus and niñas, because they can be both sweet and endearing or insulting.
Yeah, I remember when I first heard that, actually, a real, like a volley of obrigadinhos, obrigadissimos, and obrigados. There are two Nelsons in my town. One, the host who you've met, James, of our Palmeira bar and cafe. That's Nelson, one of the Nelsons. The other Nelson is a character I met here when I first came to San Martino de Porto, who runs one of those kind of multiple concession shops, with mobile phones, cigarettes, magazines, all of that kind of stuff as well.
Everything.
And he was having a ding-dong with somebody, and it was light-hearted, but they were going back and forth at each other with obrigadinhos and obrigadissimos. And I thought, that's interesting. But thank you, Antonio F., for possibly keeping us out of trouble, to go steady on that. Behaja is a phrase that Pete loves to use, a far more loving way to say thank you. And Antonio F. again helping us here. The Behaja is a more regional expression, but nothing wrong with it. So, however, Behaja, for you, Pete, it's a loving way to say thank you. Is it like another one of these bang for buck things? Does it have multiple uses as well as saying thank you? Is it like a more general acknowledgement as well, like an I see you almost? in the Portuguese, I wonder. So thank you very much for that. What's this? Just think, Carl, you have H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds type of influence. Oh, is this going back to the... It wasn't that bad, was it? The platinum visa.
People weren't jumping out of windows, I hope.
No, or ringing up their loved ones and saying
That's
goodbye.
right.
They were just thinking how they were going to dispose of all those pastel de natas, I think. So yeah, Bob fessing up to that. You got me, Carl. Quite the April Fool's, says Sarah. Good morning to you, Sarah. And also, I've got to mention that Elizabeth van der Harvest, looking forward to seeing you soon, Elizabeth. You're having a great trip coming in this morning from Kano. Do you know where that is, James? I don't know. I don't know Kano.
I don't know Kano.
When we see you in Colorado, apparently, it always had a front page on April the 1st that was so well written and plausible that it sucked many in until they turned the page. Yeah, kind of like half listening on YouTube while doing other things. Yes, that's what got him.
Kind of like that.
That's what got him. And there's the link is in. If you didn't see it and you want to have a giggle, knowing fully well that it's an April Fool. And really, these things should be. Is it the same in America, James, where the April Fool is not valid after midday of April the 1st, and you're got to come?
I don't know. I've never seen the rule book, so I don't know what the actual literal rules are. But my experience has been that you pretty much have free license until it's no longer April Fool's Day.
Okay. Antonio F., can you let us know about the significance of April Fool's Day in Portugal? I know in France it's Poisson d'Avril, isn't it? The April fish, and people stick fish on each other. And clearly the Americans and the British share a fondness for the wind-up story of April the 1st. How is it in Portugal? Is there a special phrase for it? And is it loved by Portuguese people equally? On the language in the government A1, A2 course. Oh, and before we go into this, thank you, Victoria, for your comment. I have heard, I don't know if you saw it, James. It's probably something that you don't need to consume anymore. But the Dream Team session that we did with Expats Portugal on Thursday of last week, I had Christina. Was it Christina, or was it the week before even? But the idea of people over 60 not having to do the A2 has been firmly, it may have been an April Fool, it has been firmly pushed back unless that person has some difficulty reading and writing or some
Yes.
sort of,
I read a couple of different sites, and one of them was poorly written. So it sounded like people over 60 or people with disabilities. It sounded like this was a string, and basically it was people over 60 who have difficulties with blah, blah, blah. So it was a whole long string. I said, okay, that clarifies it.
60 and still, isn't it, together?
Yeah. And
Daniel,
now they made it
hilarious. Daniel was laughing. I said, for all those people who are getting excited, but because they're over 60 and thinking they don't have to do the A2, he laughed out loud. He giggled. I said, no. It's exactly as you explained it there, James. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. Because I was just going to move on to the one thing I'm allowing myself to complain about, which is the driver's license exchange. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. But it's like what they did somehow, in all its wisdom, IMT in connection with Portugal decided that they would make it easy for everyone under the age of 60 to simply keep using the driver's license they have. But everyone over 60, they're going to require, this thick of documentation to demonstrate that you can, or to allow you to exchange your license. That one I don't get. I understand the physical competency. I don't have any problem with just adding on, do it like everyone else, but you need a doctor exam. Like, that would be great. Okay, perfect. And quite frankly, my doctor exam, I have to share this with you because I'm not the first. I actually got that done last week, I think it was.
Okay.
Went into the clinic where the driving school had sent their doctors, now in a different city, a whole lot of stuff. Anyway, I was sitting at a desk. Fortunately, Louisa was with me because the woman who was helping me didn't speak any English. I think we could have worked it out, but she was putting stuff in the computer and printing up papers, and put the paper in front of me and said, "This is I think I needed to sign it. I don't remember." And then this guy walks in. He's like in a leather jacket, and he's got a mask on, and he's on his phone, and he looks like he was going to check in for an appointment or something, but he's just standing at the desk kind of in front of me. And I said, wonder what that is. And he's looking over at the woman who's helping me, and she slides the paperwork over in his direction. I'm going, wait a minute, isn't that mine? What's going on here? And he leans over and he signs the paper, and he stands up, looks at his phone, and walks out the door. And he had just done my medical exam for my driver's license. He just signed the verification I was competent to drive.
Excellent.
And it only cost me 30 euros. And if they put me in a lineup, he wouldn't have been able to identify me. He didn't even look at me. It's like, what?
I think the fact that you got there was enough.
Yes, exactly. You found your way here.
Honestly, you can see enough to get there. You can... you're mobile enough to get there.
You obviously figured out where the doctor had moved from Ericeira to Mafra. You figured out how to get there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And I've talked with other people who had legitimate physical exams. So like so many things. Yeah. Like so many things. It just depends.
You've got to be careful though when you go see a doctor and they ask you to take your clothes off, and it's like just an eye test.
Yes.
Be wary of that. You might be being pranked. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. By the way, and that does take some of the presumed onerousness out of that medical examination, because it's also described as a psychological test, isn't it?
Well, that's if you're going to be a truck driver. Apparently, you don't need the psychological test if you're not planning on becoming a truck driver.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought that generally speaking, they were referred to as a psychological test. But anyway, it's not as bad, certainly in my experience, or James's, as some might think. It's the language that we're talking about that might be a little bit more demanding, it would appear. In the government A1, A2 course now is Victoria, the PLA. It sounds like a political association. Very good to learn more vocab, conjugation, etc. And who doesn't like to conjugate first thing in the morning and formalize what you already know? A great building block. So Victoria's enjoying that. A word from the front line of learning Portuguese there. Thank you, Victoria. Veronica's here, who will be with us from 10 o'clock this morning. The new extension to the show, the Iberian FM Phone-in. James will know that this is a remix of the Europe's biggest phone-in, but we've scaled it back a little bit to make it a bit more manageable this morning.
More realistic goals, yes.
Yes, the baby steps. We're just taking instead of
you can build from there, right? Step by step.
The Iberian Peninsula, that's 5 times the population of Portugal, to bring in Andorra, Spain, a bit of France, and Gibraltar, of course. So, and who better to talk to this morning than Veronica, American in Portugal, who's just got back from Gibraltar, and can tell us whether it's just all about British-looking phone boxes and post boxes and monkeys over there in Gibraltar and the tax haven. She'll give us her insight on that from 10. And we'll because James is here and such a big fan of the phone-in, which was fantastic on Friday, we'll take a few calls from 9:30 as well, because you really enjoyed that, didn't you, James?
I did. I loved hearing I don't want to say, hearing the voices of people we don't normally hear from, short of maybe some comments. There's those of us who are on, fairly frequently. People see us, they know us. We don't really need to be calling in. People are familiar with us, But for those who don't, I really wanted to encourage them to have, to not step up, but step in to join us in that place. So I was really happy to see that people followed my not advice, my encouragement, and did that. Yeah, and did that because it's fun, and if it's kept brief and consistent with whatever we're talking about, it can be very interesting as well, like a real talking show. So, yeah, I'd love to see that keep going.
People's everyday experience of living life in Portugal is incredibly helpful. So we'll open the phone lines again after 9:30, so you can do that today as well. Hola, Pastor from Rebel Mama. Rebel Mama's here. Hello. People in the village do April Fool's jokes. That's the village where Rebel Mama lives, up in the north.
So would they be the village fools doing April jokes, or?
I don't know. Rebel Mama will tell us. I'm sure. Not sure what they call it. Antonio F is though. April the 1st in Portugal is called Dia das Mentiras, the Day of Lies. There's no special phrase associated to the day, but you can always call it Politicians' Day.
You can do that any day.
Oh, poor politicians.
Yes.
The day of lies. Okay, here in Portugal, that's April the 1st. My driver's license exam, I was the Sam. What does that mean?
I think that's same, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, I was the same.
It was the same. I think it's
Well,
probably.
they got my name wrong, and now
Yes.
I'm called Sam on my
Yeah.
driving.
See, my license says I'm Sam. I am Sam. Sam, I am.
Is this your doctor here picking up the James vibe and just
Maybe.
signing you off very easily like that? And for Veronica, they even asked if I wore glasses, but didn't give me an eye exam. Do you wear
Yes,
glasses?
well, I have more on this, but I'll get to it as we move through.
Okay. It was an HPA doctor, so I figured maybe because they were New York doctors. I'm not sure what that means either, Veronica. You can tell us yourself when we see you. Hiya, Khadija, Rebel Mama. I go to the school. I love it. So really enjoying that language learning there on the A1A2. Joe Diaz is with us. Good morning to you, Joe. Bom dia, Portugal. Yes. We receive social benefits for attending as a Portuguese worker does, dinner and transportation expenses. Now, I've heard of this. You get paid and fed to go and learn Portuguese. That's not a bad deal, but it's not the
Bad
same.
at all.
It's not the same in every camera, is it? Or municipality. So it's worth thinking about that when you choose where to live in Portugal.
And it's so dependent, not surprisingly, on who the teacher is. I mean, the teachers make a huge difference in the experience of learning a language.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Well, Rebel Mum was saying this as well, something along the same lines. I would have done that, but I signed up a year ago and they haven't done it yet. Lol. Also, my friends in Porto did it. Completely different teachers, one good one and one not. Makes a big difference, of course. The teacher, Victoria, signed up back in September, and it took 6 months to get in. So there are waiting lists. I know they're trying to launch one in Nazaré, if that's any good to anybody. Somebody very enthusiastically stopped me in the street to tell me that. Good morning to you, Adam. Thank you for that information. So they are, as soon as they've got enough people in Nazaré, they're going to launch, I think, for an April course of this kind. It's also helping me get out of my Spanish brain because I automatically go to Spanish when trying to speak Portuguese. It's very confusing. Excuse me, and this is helping me a lot. That is, yes, because she's proudly Iberian, is Victoria.
Out about it.
Out about it for sure. Where do you stand on this, James? Are you curious at all, or are you firmly a Portuguese fella?
I'm not curious about Spain. If I don't know exactly why, except that generally I hear it's really hot when it's hot, and that's not my thing.
When it's not, it's not.
Yes. And choice of ocean is significantly reduced, and ocean is my thing. So.
Yes.
No, and from California, Spanish was always available to me. For some reason, I just wasn't that interested in learning. Of course, that's Mexican Spanish, but yeah. So Portugal, it suits me fine.
Not for you, then.
I don't know that I would be able to manage both a spouse and a lover. So.
As it's been expressed.
Yes.
By you.
Well, and I've also dedicated to, it's like one language is hard enough. I'm going to stick with that. And I even narrowed that down. I did some research. João Ferreira helped me. Luisa helped me understand. Probably Antonio as well. I mean, all my Portuguese friends basically said the same thing because I was looking for a standard Portuguese. Because in the United States, more or less the way I speak is considered standard English, and that's what they teach as English in the United States. So does Portugal have standard English? And the answer was no, not really. But each one of them said individually, but if you learn Lisboan Portuguese, you will be understood anywhere that Portuguese is spoken. I said, okay, that's my language. I'll learn that one. I'll learn the Porto variations. I'll learn the Alentejo variations later, maybe, but I need to get one right before I start going off there. So now I'm working on British, and then there's Spanish too. I'll leave Spanish alone. No, thanks. Enough challenges with language.
No, I have felt a little bit awkward in opening up to Spain. But the more I've contemplated the idea, the more I like it. And for some people, it will be just confirmation that they've made the right choice about Portugal, I'm sure. Others will have their horizons broadened. There's Gibraltar and Andorra in there as well. There's something very fascinating about the Iberian Peninsula. It's not a land mass or geographical phenomenon that is well known, is it? What's the first thing you think of when the word Iberia or Iberian is uttered?
Well, initially I went to Russia. I mean,
Really?
over there,
That's in
yeah,
Siberia,
because
rather
it's so
than
like Siberia, you know. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I wonder. I mean, I didn't know. Like so many Americans have no idea, or maybe this is changing rapidly, but had no idea where Portugal was. A lot of people thought Portugal was in Central America. You know what? So I heard Iberia initially and thought, oh, that must have something to do with Siberia. Maybe it's a different country over there.
Yeah.
But now I understand. So I
Oh.
learned that actually through ancestry.com, because there was some reference to Iberian genes or something like that. And I said, what? So then I
Yeah.
looked it up. Like, oh, okay. Now I get it. The Iberian Peninsula. So
It is a fascinating phenomenon, and it brings things together in a really nice way. That's not like a political club, for one thing. It's not like the EU. It's not generally known. I think it's been a fascinating journey for me to learn more about the Iberian concept. People are enjoying this game. What's the first thing you think of when the word Iberian is mentioned? Ham. So there's the links as well, isn't there? Links, is that the plural? Ham as well. And then Sarah's like, the second mention of Homer Simpson, possibly.
that's a Homer Simpson right there. Ham.
A Hammer Simpson right there.
Yeah, so change it to donut. You got it spot on.
Yeah. So anyone else? What else do you think of when you think of Iberia, or when you hear that mentioned? I've remembered, James. I don't know if you've tried this beer. I know you like a cold beer from time to time. I thought I'd downloaded it anyway. Where's it gone? I can't find it now. But what I can find is your dad joke, which you need to apologise for now, I think.
That was so bad. I saw
It's
that coming
awful,
from a mile away, but that's why I had to do it. So
go on then. Read through
well,
it.
you need to get that square. Well, I don't know. All right.
Yeah, start off, and I'll deliver the punchline.
I'm addicted to buying old Beatles records. Sounds like you need help. No, I already have that one.
We definitely need the groaning.
Yes.
We need that sort of "oh no" sound, don't we? That we have on the end of the dad joke warning jingle.
Yeah, I think the closest thing you got is the crickets, but
yeah, that's true. Which I inadvertently pressed the other day.
But it doesn't do justice to the groan that it needs. Yes.
I pressed that button by mistake on a webinar the other day, and I'm hoping the speaker didn't take it personally. I have
just like Inu and Inya, you know, I got to be careful with those crickets.
Yeah, I was just adding a bit of Iberian atmosphere in the background. Don't take it personally. Someone else who's been busy, not drilling their finger, but drilling the earth outside. Thank you, Owen, for sharing your hard work this weekend. Look at this. Plugs of turf. Sod, you might say. Look at what's going on here. So some grass has been sown.
That's John's place again.
This is doing it the hard way. I think Owen's working in the back garden there. Oh, got a few seeds ready for the season. But look, hand plugging. Oh, there's a lovely pond as well. That'll be nice for mosquitoes, won't it, later on this year? Only kidding.
Oh, if they tend it, it'll be fine. Yeah. But
Owen's been here. Let me just see what he said about this. He's been busy out in the garden, so I'm not the only one who's been working on the homestead. Owen's here after finishing planting 1,640 grass plant plugs. I've started preparations for my Horta Urbanas vegetable plot. This was my weekend. Thank you very much, Owen, for that. So those aren't the grass plugs. That's the those are some of the seeds, I think, that are already germinating.
Looks like it. Yeah.
1,600 grass plugs. That looks like one of those sort of early hair transplants, doesn't it? It's
I was gonna say, when you use the word plug, hair plug, grass plug, yeah, same concept.
You were in the hairdressing business, James. That must have been early technology at the time, where they just would take your pubic hair and stick it on your head. Is that how it used to work back in the day?
You know, I was never in that particular specialty. I think that was considered more medical than styling, but actual hair plugs, as they evolved, were just moving hair from a thick place to a thin place on your head.
Right. Okay. And then seeing if it would take. You have to spray it regularly, a bit like Owen's back garden, I suspect.
A little steer manure on there, a little fertilizer, a little compost. Yeah.
Bit of water, bit of manure. Very good. And some TLC. Maybe talk to it like you would to a plant as well.
Couldn't hurt.
Right, mate. Sorry, we've gone off, and this is what we do, isn't it, on a Monday?
Many tangents, yes.
Mindful migration, not very mindful in terms of keeping on point. or focus, but I think useful information peppered throughout the conversation. You did have some other things to say about the language?
Yes. Well, the getting back to the driver's license exchange and sort of the precursor, one of my friends who had the legitimate exam for the driver's license said he simply went to his Centro da Saúde and got an exam, and they did a proper exam, blood pressure, eye test, the whole thing.
Wow.
And he said it didn't cost him anything. And I said, okay, well, there's another option. So Louisa suggested that, I suggested that maybe we ask, and I asked her if she could she said, well, we'll go down there. I said, well, is it possible just call him? And then she just laughed. It's like, call him. You're hilarious. So no, we'll go down. So we went down, and she had an appointment somewhere else. So Sidonio went in with me. And as I said, he and I kind of barely understand what we're up to when we're with each other. We more or less get it figured out. But he was doing much of the translation around, essentially, I thought we were there simply to find out, is it possible for James to do this here? Well, it turned into a typical 20-minute conversation that was going on, and I'd hear my name every once in a while. They'd look at me every once in a while. I was trying to work out what they were saying, and I was getting some of it and not some of it. And at one point, Sidonio looked at me. There was this brief pause, and he looked at me with a smile on his face. And I went, what was that? And then he went back into the conversation. What was that? That moment where he just looked and he smiled like, what's happening? It looks like good news, but I don't know what they're talking about. Long story, a little bit shorter. He handed me the document that he had gotten with a doctor's name on it. And he says, you have a doctor. And I go, okay, I thought we were here for information. Now I have an appointment. So what's going on? He said, well, this is your doctor. And I said, for the exam for the driver's license? He says, see, you're a doctor, everything you need. I was like, but we first have to go get an eye test. And it's like, they can't do an eye test here. I mean, it's just reading a chart, right? Cover an eye, looking. But anyway, all that came up and confusion. But in that confusion, eventually it became clear that I had been assigned a family doctor within the public healthcare system in Ericeira. And that surprised me immensely, because Louisa has told me that she's been in Ericeira for over 20 years and has not gotten a family doctor.
Wow.
And I said, I've been here 18 months and I have a family doctor, and you and Louisa have been here 20 years and don't. I said, that's just not fair.
Yeah,
I'll give you my doctor. I mean, that. But he said, no. He says, I have one too. And he holds up a paper. So he has a family doctor now. And he said, and Louisa. So it's simply, I take credit for all of this. It's simply because I went to do this. They finally got their family doctor because of my influence. It was quite fun. Sidonio was explaining it all to Louisa when we got together with her. And they were both so calm. It's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, after 20 years, you have a family doctor. I mean, we should go celebrate. That sort of feeling for me. At any rate, what I came up with as Louisa was pondering the idea that she now has a family doctor after 20 years. I just said, de nada.
Well, the big question then, James, is can you offer this service to anybody else? Because
I don't know. Yeah, it was really amazing. To me, it was a landmark moment, and I felt like, oh, I really made a contribution here somehow. Maybe just getting them into the doctor's office to ask the question, can this guy have a doctor? And say, oh, yeah, not only him, but you too. What's your name? Oh, yeah, you have one.
It's like being in a bar, isn't it? Buy everyone a drink.
Yes, exactly.
In this case, everyone gets a family doctor.
Sidonio was so matter-of-fact about me having a doctor. I just assumed it was this appointment that I had no idea what it was for, because he couldn't really explain it to me. So ultimately, I just went and did the €30 thing where the guy didn't even look at me and sign my paper, and I got it. But now I also have an appointment later today, my first appointment with my family doctor in Ericeira. So it turned out well for all. I just had to share that anecdote because I was excited about it, and I don't know how it transpired, but
Well,
it was a lot of fun
congratulations.
and got it done.
Congratulations, and a really useful. I mean, God forbid you need to go to see the family doctor, but if you ever do, and it's not too embarrassing, it will be great to hear of your experiences, because that's quite a milestone in its own right. But also the whole process of going to see a family doctor in Portugal, I'm sure, will be very useful information for other people. James.
Yeah, well, I was actually planning to get the new vocabulary, checkup annual, I think is how it's pronounced, which is kind of funny because it's just annual checkup, but it's,
Yes.
annual is spelled a little differently, but it's still checkup. Just because it's been a while, and it's like, okay, I should get that checked, and trying to figure out, am I going to need to use my private healthcare to do that? Well, now I have an appointment with a doctor, and I don't need it for my driver's license, so I'll just find out if we can do my checkup annual.
Or let us know how that goes, because I think that will be a really good eye opener. No eye test, pun intended there, but that it will be a really good little bit of information for people to find out about when you have your annual MOT.
Yes.
Great stuff. Okay, people can call us if they would wish to do so. 913-590-303. Got a few more comments here. The beer you spoke about earlier, was it the American Ale? It was. And here, I'm going to share it with you now, my American friend James. It is the Coruja, the owl beer, the Coruja. I made myself a part of the weekends. There's one of the lamps that I drilled out over to the right-hand side of the picture.
Well done, sir.
Well, I made myself a nice little platform where I can sit with a beer.
I don't see any finger bits over there. So
no, it wasn't so bad. There wasn't gore everywhere. I'd wiped the walls down by this point. But that was me, and this is my little digital gonad area for sitting outside in an intermediate space, covered from the sun and the rain, because of course we are going into the rainy season here. And I can sit there in the nice warmer temperatures, sipping on one of those owl beers.
Is that a micro brew, or you said Superbock? Or
it's actually made by Superbock, and I've got mixed feelings. I mean, if I can drink a real craft brewery's beer and support an independent brewery, I will. Superbock aren't exactly an independent small brewery, are they?
They're a large independent brewery.
Yes, I don't even know how it goes now.
Yes.
But that's a tasty beer. It's their American. Would it be an IPA sort of tasting brew? It's really refreshing anyway, so thoroughly recommend that. And I've got another picture for you. Talking of hostelries and drinking, you can eat and drink at this beautiful new place in San Martino de Porto. I just found this while I was having a little rummage through pictures as well. Anyway, I'll leave that on the screen. It's too difficult to take it off right now. But the Hotel Storytellers Palace, that's the new hotel in San Martino de Porto, and that's a fine menu. Some lovely things on there. So do check that out. Come to San Martino de Porto and have a special weekend here. Anything else before I do more comments here, James? Was there anything else you wanted to get off your chest?
Bob brought up last week what he was calling puppy mind, which I found adorable because I had talked about beginner's mind the previous week, and I think I probably mentioned something about the mind being like a puppy earlier on. So he put the two together, and they're not totally different, but it did remind me, and given that this is ostensibly a mindful spot that we're doing, I thought, well, I can talk about this puppy concept because I learned it from a Facebook site called Buddhist Boot Camp, which is it's great.
Really?
I mean, yeah. He's an American Buddhist. I believe he's a Buddhist monk. His name is Timber Hawkeye, which I'm assuming is the name that he assigned himself, or he had really hippie parents. Either way, I don't know, but Timber Hawkeye is the founder of Buddhist Boot Camp, and he's got some great T-shirts too. The sayings, I can't remember some of them now, but I actually owned one at one point. But he talks in very understandable ways about various Buddhist concepts. And one of the things that he talked about once was, he said, the mind is like an untrained puppy. And I immediately understood what he was talking about. If you've ever been around a new puppy that has not had any training yet, they're just all over the place. They're running in circles, they're chasing their tails, they're jumping on their siblings, they're barking, they're whining, they're laying just all over the place, like zero control, just woo. And so when he said the mind, the untrained mind is like an untrained puppy, I totally understood what he was talking about. And then he went on to explain some of the details using the same analogy of, how do you train a puppy? You have to be gentle, you have to be consistent, but you need to practice, all the stuff to get off that, and then to the animation Up with the balloons and the dog that Jim Carrey did the voice for, and the keyword squirrel.
Yes.
It's like the dog goes, doo-doo, squirrel, doo-doo-doo, squirrel, like that, just poof. So training the mind and to slow down and to stay in one place for a little bit is really the fundamental basis of mindfulness as I understand it. It's not a matter of sitting doing nothing for hours a day. It's just taking a moment to slow the mind down, locate yourself, your whole self, your intellect, your emotion, your spiritual side, your all of the parts of yourself, and just land in one place for a moment and say, how's it going? Squirrel. No,
it won't be long, will it? Let's face it.
Right. So the notion of the mind being an untrained puppy, I just thought was so incredibly useful to me and my understanding, and allowing me to not get frustrated. Like, you don't want to smack a puppy because it doesn't know, and stop it, you idiot. It's like, no, be patient, and then it'll, be patient and kind in the process, and it will be easier, I think, to develop. But it's very important. I mean, so much research has been done on this notion of breathing and settling, and how the unhealthy hormones and chemicals in our body filter their way out when we obtain those states. It's such an important piece of being healthy. And mind to me is not the brain. Mind is not intellect. To me, mind is, and it always feels like it's in the middle of my chest. It can be any location you have. There is no actual physical mind, I don't believe. But it's the intersection of the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional parts of ourselves. The whole of ourself. It's that place where it all intersects. To me, that's where mind resides, or that's where those places reside, in mind. So it's not a function of thoughts necessarily, but it's the intellect or the brain does influence what's going on at that intersection. And that's the one that tends to confuse things a lot. When the heart speaks, it may not be clear, but it acts in a different way. So anyway, yes, and all of that does apply to anything that we're doing to be in this country.
I'll ask you more specifically about that, but Tabitha, Tabitha has put the link to the podcast of Timber Hawkeye, who's also written a brilliant book as well, unless you're talking about James. Have you read any books, James? Not yet.
Have I read any books? Yeah, I've read many books.
No, written any books?
Oh, written. I'm working. It's become kind of a joke. So many authors. I'm working on one. That is true. His current working title is "It's Not About the Noodles," because it comes out of my work with couples, and so many of the arguments, they'd be arguing for hours, vehemently arguing for an hour about the kind of noodles that were being used for the dinner, and that had nothing to do with what the issue actually was.
Yes.
So I in doing that, I thought, well, that I can use that. That was I literally had a couple arguing about the noodles that were used for dinner.
It could also be called Ramen Amen, couldn't it? Or Raymond Amen.
Yeah. But it's not about the noodles. It just really gets it when I talk to my clients about that. Then we can just make that reference. I said, that's the noodles. And
that is fantastic.
they completely know what I'm talking about.
I look forward to that, and you can pre-order it, I suspect, on Amazon. Which might, if you start buying the book, that might get James writing it.
Yeah, well, I've got about 80 pages of it written, but I haven't added anything for probably a couple of years because I've been in this process of getting moved here, and then this needs this, and then this needs that. So there's a constant putting back of that, but it's on my to-do list for sure.
Good. Look forward to that. That's a great title and a great idea as well, with a little bit of couples counselling in there. And yeah, of course, Puppy Mind then coming to Portugal. Struggling with the puppy mind and what it can bring, the squirrels of migration, I suppose. Can you give us a bit more specificity on that? You know, how might people? Well, I suppose the first thing is to observe themselves being squirrel
squirrely,
squirrely, and squirrel curious, and what to do in that moment.
To me, the magic of notice, choose, act is that it can be applied. When we bring it to mind, it's just a description of life. It's what happens. You know, we'll notice something, then we'll make a choice about it, and then we'll take an action about that choice. It's not always conscious, but it's always present, and it just life just on and on and on and on. So the trick with any of this is noticing that I'm feeling overwhelmed, or noticing that I'm feeling afraid, or whatever it is I'm noticing. I'm excited. Noticing that, you know, I have this list and I don't know where to start. All those kinds of things are the notice of becoming aware, and that requires introspection, which we tend not to do. We tend to look out here. What's going on out there? We're watching the television of life, right? Rather than looking at the drama of life, or whatever it is it's inside that creates the show out there. So that's the key, and I don't have any particular way of doing it other than practice. You know, noticing you're not noticing, so it's taking a moment to notice, right? It's like that for a while. So I say the trick for me is waking up sooner, staying asleep less, and remembering to pay attention more often, right? So that's self-awareness more and more often, so that it becomes more practice. And a practice is a good way to do it. Now, I'm dedicating 5 minutes every morning when I wake up to remembering what I'm grateful for. Yeah. You turn it into a practice, then it might become habit, which then might help you to wake up sooner when you're not in bed in the morning. Like you got cut off by someone in a car, or Seth has sent you all your paperwork back with no explanation about why, you know, and you're going, ah! You know, okay, wait, I'm really upset now. So what can I do? I want the choices to stay upset or to choose something else. Whatever I choose, hopefully it will be not to be upset, then take the action. What do I need? I just need to step away from this for a minute. I need a beat. I need to take a walk. I need to, whatever I need to do to not be in this state of aggravation or confusion or whatever it is. So again, that notice, choose, and act is the process.
And you might say that moving to Portugal has a free Buddhist boot camp thrown in with the process, right?
It's much more consistent with the culture than what I experienced in the United States, for sure. Yeah. It's calmer. There's more opportunities to slow down. I get a sense culturally it tends to be more thoughtful. At least, again, all in my experience, I never want to be a representative of all Portuguese people in the country of Portugal. I don't know any of that, but my experience has been the pace is slower. The people tend to be calmer. I've said, and it's still true. In 1 year, I had seen 2 people get demonstrably angry in public, just like shouting in public. Only twice. Now, maybe I'm in sheltered Ericeira. It might be different in Lisboa, where there's more traffic and other things going on. But in the United States, that was several times a day. If I was outside of my house, there was somebody yelling at somebody about something, including parents at their children, which I don't know that I've ever seen a parent yelling at their child here. You know, they may be stern, they may pull them aside and insist they calm down, but not yelling like, or hitting. I haven't seen anyone hit a child here. So definitely calmer, more relaxed.
Marvelous. Now we have a caller who is a little bit ahead of the Iberian FM phone-in. So we might have to be brief, and you may want to call back later on as well. Lord Gilchrist on the line from the capital. What did you want to add to this, Lord Gilchrist?
Hola, bom dia.
Hola, bom dia.
Bom dia.
Muito bem, obrigado. Contigo?
I just thought I'd call in. I'm a little late this morning to the party, so to speak. I just got back yesterday afternoon from spending weekend up in Pedroga Grande at Quintessential, actually, with Lee McGrady and Dave Durham. We went up to lend a hand on the farm to help Jason with his many tasks and projects. Give him a little free labour for the weekend.
Very good. Mates helping mates.
Very accommodating. And I'm slightly sunburnt from yesterday working outside, which it's quite a novelty for me as I'm normally stuck in an office. But it's also that kind of dose of vitamin D has put me in a really sort of pearly mood for the week, I'm sure.
Pearly? What a lovely turn of phrase.
I like that.
So he's looking like a proper Brit.
Week. I'm in a pearly mood.
Very good. He's all red.
So you're pearly early.
Early, pearly, and something else that rhymes with that. Well, thank you for letting us know.
I thought I'd call in and say, spring is definitely in the air, isn't it? You can feel the leaves are coming, and it's really good for the soul. I think a bit of sunshine and a bit of outdoors. This is what I love about Portugal. You can be in the city and have a great, modern existence. But it doesn't take very long to just disappear out into the countryside and hear nothing.
Very good. I want to find out from you. Are you Ib curious? Are you a Iberian or are you firmly Portuguese?
Well, I'm married to the mob, aren't I? So.
Oh my goodness! Yes, so it would be a little bit indelicate to declare yourself Iberian, I think. All right,
I don't know that statement.
You weren't here earlier on, were you?
Yeah, that's what you get for being late to the party, man.
Cheers, mate. Andy, I've got to move on because we're going to bring in Veronica on in just a moment. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing back those lovely Central Portuguese, relaxed and Irie man vibes.
Stay pearly.
Fantastic. Cheers, mate. Take care. Have a great week.
Have a great week.
All right. Cheers. Bye for now. There he goes.
Pearly, not burly.
It's that easy.
Maybe both.
913-590-303. Thank you very much, James. A quick few comments before we open up the Iberian phone-in. Matti, hola, bon dia, alegria, todos. A bit sunny there, Solana. Not much time for the show today. Just a quick hello. Well, thank you. Hope everyone will have a great Segunda and week. Cheers there. And I think an update. Preliminary contract has been signed by both parties and the letters to the neighbours have been sent. Not sure how it works now. You just have to wait 13 months, I think. No, only kidding. Do the neighbours have to actively say no, we don't buy? Or is it a deadline? Does anyone know this? If they do both say yes, we want to buy, then it is us over. Does anyone?
I think the next step is you have to take a complaints book to each of the neighbors and see if they want to put anything in it before.
Not April the 1st anymore, James. Stop it.
Oh,
hubby
missed
did
it.
Driver's license thingy online. No eye test. Go figure. Maybe you should go and help out at the Miranda de Corvo Centre de Saúde. Your help is needed. Sarah's here this morning. Rugby Colin. The 4 times I've replaced my driver's license, each doctor just looked at me and signed the paper. Must be because I looked healthier than each of the doctors. Sometimes. Over there. Morning, Jim. Jim's here. Fantastic. And Tabitha's got to go and eat machos. So come back with your machos and decide if you're Iberian or not in the company of Veronica in just a moment. James, you're right about traffic. Yelling, it's common. But not everyone yells. They prefer to honk. There you go. James, thank you. Great job this morning. We'll see you again next Monday.
Obrigado.
Feel free to phone in for the Iberian FM phone-in, of course, in a little while.
I'll be getting ready for my doctor appointment.
Okay, mate. Yes. Is it today? Is it actually today?
Yes, it is this morning. Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. I missed that. So let us know how it goes. I guess you'll be able to report on that next Monday. So round of applause to you. I nearly pressed the wrong button.
Stop it, you idiot.
How rude of me. I'm so sorry.
That?
Okay.
Tell him to stop it. He's an idiot.
Mate, have a great week. Have a lovely day. Have a great week. And take care and bye for now. A nice big round of applause for you somewhere.
Ciao, ciao. Obrigado.
Bye for now. There he goes. And now let's look at that question. Are you curious? Are you Iberian? I've got a jingle for this, and we'll be right back with Veronica after we've played this as we launch the new Iberian FM phone-in, 10 o'clock in Portugal and 11 o'clock in Spain, of course. We'll be right back after this. Join us on 913-590-303. Here she is. Hola, bon dia.
Hola, bon dia. How are you today?
I say, que tal amigo? As of Spain speaks might say. Lovely for you to join us here, or lovely of you to join us. I hope it's lovely for you as well. American in Portugal, Veronica. How are you today?
Good. How are you? I always love being on this show. You're so fun. And oh my gosh, I was giggling at everything this morning. You know, the language, it depends on the teacher as far as the schooling and the school, the driver's license. You're so afraid it's going to be this big deal. And they're like, whatever, like, you look good. Do you use glasses? I'm like, no. And then I got in the car and went, oopsie. At night, I'm starting to use oops. So,
I mean, no one ever knows how it's going to go, do they?
no.
It's just a luck of the draw, it would seem, and it varies from place to place. So that hasn't been a big milestone or pitfall or difficulty for you then on the driving license side of things. What's been the worst thing for you in your process in Portugal?
I think the worst thing was buying the house, because I expected it to be like it was in America, and it's not. And I think that's why my channel kind of ended up going that way, is because people, there's no disclosure. Nobody wants to be honest. Nobody thinks it's that big of a deal. It's just a house. Just no. Why are you asking if it's got plumbing? You know.
What is wrong with you?
Through 3 escrows. The very first one, I'd asked, it'd been vacant for a few years. So I asked them to turn on the heat, electricity, and gas, so that a home inspector could come check it out. And they're like, what's a home inspector? And no, we're not turning it on. I'm like, when I move it, I could turn on the water. It could spew everywhere. It hadn't been used in years. So, and they said no. So I said, okay, I'm walking on to the next one, moved to the next one. By the time I was getting ready in that one, they're like, oh, it hasn't sold in like 5 years. Maybe we'll turn on the heat and gas for you now. And I'm like, nope. On to the next one. And then that one didn't work out because I did have that one inspected and they said no. 3rd time's a charm. So I think patience is definitely required here.
Cultural adjustment.
When we talk about people being slower, that translates us into being more calm and patient too. Like once you pick up that vibe, that it's okay to wait in line and to slow down and enjoy life, things change, you know? And again, I think to the point of your earlier guest, it depends on where you live, you know? So if you want that rush, that's Lisbon. If you want calm, it's going to be in a more laid back area. Alentejo.
Yes, absolutely. Well, okay. We know we love you love Portugal, and we have this new development now, don't we? This whether people are Iberian or not, and this is something that occurred to me over the weekend. And like I said, I feel a little bit hesitant about this because I have been firm in my love of Portugal, and I felt a little bit unfaithful whenever thinking about Spain. Others, however, have no such hang-ups and spread their love liberally across both countries, across the border there. Where are you in this, would you say? Are you curious? Are you Iberian? I know you've just got back from Gibraltar, which you'll tell us about, but how do you feel about Spain for starters?
Well, I have a twofer. I'm already in 2 countries, right? I'm looking at Spain out my window. I just jump on the ferry and I'm there in 9 minutes. So I see both sides, and I see that I have both. So for me, I can just be here and I'm there, and, you know, off the ferry and I'm there. I think from when people are deciding from a cultural or fiscal perspective, a lot of people are starting to shift right now because of the changes in the golden visa and the property laws, right? So we were just talking about the article. I know you sent me the article, and it's the big thing everybody's discussing where, okay, are they going to bring back now platinum visas? Because I think they're seeing people, they probably saw a drop in applications for all visas immediately, because my friends from Spain called me and they said, hey, Veronica, can you send us all your golden visa clients, because they're still doing golden visa in Spain. So it's really funny that of all times you would reach out to me about this, because I have friends saying, send them to Costa del Sol. But I personally like Portugal for the calmer, quieter vibe, because when I go to Spain, we always say, if you go to Spain, you've got to turn up the volume.
Yes.
You don't yell. You go into a restaurant, you're like, it's packed, it's crowded. And you look around, there's only 2 families. And you definitely know when a Spanish family is in town here, because the Portuguese are calm or quiet. And they're like, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And I have a Spanish friend I've been hanging out with a lot. And he's like, what's wrong with you Portuguese? You're too slow. We're at a cafe and the guy is juicing my oranges. So it took a while to get my orange juice. They didn't have the machine. And he's like, why is it taking so long for your juice? I'm like, you can drink your coffee. Like, the dude's actually juicing it with like.
And juicing for you. Take a chill pill. I mean, there really is a marked difference in the personalities, isn't there? Yeah. Let's start there. I mean, when I lived in Aveiro or nearby, I think that's one of the quickest routes for Spanish people to come and enjoy the coast. So it's like a highway from Spain to come into Portugal.
Oh, so is here.
Oh, is it? Of course it would be.
Spain, Portugal bridge. They just, our hidden beach, we had bloggers come into our town and say we didn't have a beach because you have to go through the pine forest to get to it. Clearly, they didn't look at a map because they'd see we're on the beach. And they ended up going to Monte Gordo. But if you go in, it's a dirt road to get to it. So I think people just stay on the highway. Almost all the cars are Spanish. And when you go up to Praia Verde, you'll go in, there's a big club up there. There's a big pool overlooking the cliff. Almost every single car in the summer says E for España.
Isn't it funny? So despite the phenomenon you just described, where Spanish people are thinking maybe it's a bit too slow for their liking here, they still love coming over the border.
Of course they do. Of course they do. They're still going to yell and order our servers around, and our server's going to look like I'm going, oh, you get another time added to your time because you weren't kind, you know. Kindness always goes far. In fact, my American friends, when they come over, they're so proud that they speak Spanish because California, Mexico, and they just start spewing off their Spanish. And I'm like, in Portugal, you're better off to speak English.
Yeah.
English, because the Spanish have come over and brought the mentality of hurry, hurry, rush, rush, which we can do too, right? Hurry, hurry, rush, rush, and been pushy and demanding to the Portuguese. And so the Portuguese, if they think you're Spanish, they're really going to make you wait.
Wow. Okay. Well, we look forward to Spanish people calling in to the Iberian Phone-in due course. We will be doing this at 10 o'clock every morning, and it's I guess the Spanish, again, are going so fast in life that they're already an hour ahead of us, currently just after 11. So as we get into the swing of this, I'm sure more Spanish people will call. There are, I think, possibly 5 times as many Spanish people on the Iberian Peninsula as there are Portuguese people. So it's going to be interesting. And we're also very fascinated to hear from foreigners, immigrants, expats who are making a life in Spain. So we can talk about these comparisons of the different lifestyles. I think Portugal has it on the, how should I say it, the financial, fiduciary side of things. It would seem a more attractive place to come. But of course, Spain, as I'm sure we'll be told, has many other attractions that people will be prepared to put up with, the less advantageous financial side for all the glory that Spain has. And we look forward to hearing about that in the coming weeks and months on the Iberian FM phone-in here. Now, we're not talking about Spain necessarily, although we might with you in time, Veronica. You've just got back from Gibraltar. How was that?
Oh, Gibraltar's amazing. I love it, and it was interesting. Again, I talked to a friend, why are you going there? I don't like it. I've been back multiple times. In fact, I ran into a guy I met 6 years ago in a bar, and I was on a cruise ship, and I had gone with a girlfriend all around the rock and done, the taxi tour up to the top and down. We had to see a local pub there because it's Gibraltar, which is kind of like Great Britain, but not really. Met
Yes.
these fun people, and then we said, oh, we've got to run off to our ship. So I was there this time, and I walked to the bathroom, and when I came back, the guy's like, I know you. I'm like, oh, he's like, I'm in your group. I'm in your American and Portugal group. And I'm like, but you're not American. You're not in Portugal. He's like, I met you one day 6 years ago. He's like, look, this is you, Veronica. We're friends on Who has a memory like that? Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
I texted my friend. Do you remember this? She remembers. I don't remember anything. I don't remember going to a pub.
So you've been a few times there to Gibraltar.
Yeah. So anyway, that story segued. But anyway, I love it, love it, love it there. I think for living, it's a little bit trickier because it's quite expensive. For taxation, I think if you're highly wealthy, the taxation is beneficial.
Yeah.
If you're average to moderate or lower income, an apartment, I was looking at apartments and what they cost. You know, like every town you go in, you look at the pricing. Like a small little one bedroom was $500,000.
Right. Okay.
And it is very congested in the town. They're doing a lot of reclamation, so they're bringing back so much of the ocean or they're turning the ocean into land and reclaiming. I guess they're not reclaiming land; they're making land. Maybe when the sea levels were lower. It's just a glorious place to visit, and it's so nice to be close to all of this, right? So tomorrow I'm off to Seville and then Barcelona, quick flight to Barcelona.
Oh, really? So you really are doing the Iberian thing. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, okay, Gibraltar then, when I think of it, and I think other people might think the same sort of ideas, is like, you know, you're going to see a bit like being in Malta, you're going to see a British phone box, if they still exist, or a post box.
Yes.
And then there's the monkeys as well. And there's this whole kind of tax haven thing. And it's a bit like maybe the Singapore of Europe. I don't know. Those things, is it a lot like the UK? Does it feel, I mean, you've been to the UK, I think. And does it feel,
many times.
Does it feel very similar to being in the UK?
No, because it's a really big melting pot. But even I would say the locals that have been there for a while have a slightly different accent. They kind of have that accent like, the South Africans.
Yeah.
It's like this blending. Whereas when you're in Great Britain, it's a melting pot in London. But, when you're down in Wales or up in Redcar, Scarborough or somewhere else, they tend to have similar accents. It felt very multicultural, and it's just got so much and it's so little. You go around the whole island. We biked around the whole island. We biked to the top, we biked down, and we saw 40% of it just by bike in, 3 or 4 hours. Right. So it has this island feel, even though it's a peninsula, cut off by the airport. So I don't get the vibe that it feels like. And Malta felt different too. Malta didn't feel like London. I was just in Malta.
So a little bit of, a British influence, but not overwhelmingly so. Not Little Britain, as it were.
Yeah. And they're pretty proud to be not Britain, right? I mean, they use the pound, and you have to remember to, go to the ATM and get money out. But they still will take euros. They'll just give you the exchange rate back in pounds and a really bad exchange rate. So,
okay. Well, that's something to know. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, they do use the pound, but they're more of like a commonwealth than a country. So they're proud to be independent, because remember, even they had to vote on Brexit, uniquely Brexit.
Yeah.
And almost like if they wanted to be absorbed in Europe, because they're just this little area hanging down. And it's really interesting to talk about on who are they, their identity, Yeah.
Did you do that? Did you? I mean, I guess. I mean, you really connect whenever you go anywhere, don't you? You're talking to local people. What is that? What is this? Your sense of what being a Gibraltarian is then? Fiercely independent with a little bit of a British influence, but presumably Spanish influences as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of Spanish being spoken where the Spanish didn't speak English, and I was shocked that they were in Gibraltar working at shops and didn't speak any English. I'm like, okay, so that's interesting. And having all of these English customers as well. And the guys just look at you. So I was in one restaurant, and the lady was delightful from Ireland. So of course you get all the stories, because, we love the Irish. They've got their storytellers, and just delightful. They don't just come by and say hello. They say, hello, how are you? And your dog and your mom and your uncle and your aunt. So had a nice conversation with her. And then her server came over, and I said, oh, you have popcorn popcorn fish and popcorn shrimp. He's like, no, we don't. I'm like, it's on your board. And he's like, oh. And I had to go get the gal and have her translate. And he's like, yeah, we have that, but I don't know what it is. Trying to communicate that in Spanish. So it's really interesting that.
Well, I think that's what happens every day, isn't it? A lot of people are coming across the border to work, in and out of the place. And that's how they managed to get. Didn't they have 110% vaccination rate, because they were actually vaccinating people during the pandemic who weren't even Gibraltarians. So they're this massive, like over 100% rate. I think that was workers coming in across the border. Here you are. Tell us. Let's have a look at your slideshow here. Can you talk us through it?
So this is, I think, one of the places that most people don't go to. It's Catalonia Bay. They go to the main part of Gibraltar, the shopping streets, Casemate Square. They go to all of these main areas. And I actually ran into a couple from Canada, and they're like, we're bored. We don't know what to do. They got off an airport. Well, you go across the runway. They got off the shuttle, went the wrong way, and said, Gibraltar sucks. It's boring. I said, well, let's talk about this. Let me take you to Casemate Square, where all the restaurants and everything are. But then I explained to them about the tours, and at least take the taxi tour. They'll take you all around in 2 hours, and they're really reasonable. This was a biking tour. So that's Catalonia Bay. It's on the back side.
It's beautiful. So, what a lovely photo of you that is. That's wonderful.
Yeah, me and my helmet. I should wear that every day. Maybe I can remember.
It's a good, strong look there, Veronica.
But I think I put one aimed just at the bay, because that was to let people know I bike there. So look at how beautiful this bay is.
Color. And so I think over to your left, this is the characteristic of the bay, then, is it? These beautifully colored buildings.
And look, no one's there on the beach. It was a warm day. It was like 75 degrees. It's not touristy season yet. And on the very edge, there was a hotel they had to knock down. If you see at the very end, you'll see some rubble of that picture.
Sorry.
They hadn't put the stakes in deep enough. So eventually a Hilton will go there. And then that will make that bay a little, it might be overdone, but it will at least let people see the other side of Gibraltar.
It's so lush, isn't it? What's the climate like there? Because it doesn't look like an Algarve kind of searing heat and burnt grass climate, or is it just the time of year?
Well, they get a lot of those winds from Africa. In fact, it was cold when I went there. So it was still 70, 75 here, super warm. We were all in our tank tops. And I got there and I'm like, oh, burr, it's kind of cold. So they get these winds that come through, quite frequently, that make it much more colder and more wet. So I was surprised at how much colder it was. Then after a few days, it turned a little more similar to like our weather here in the Algarve. But when I came back, it was at least 10 degrees warmer here, American degrees. So
not that much, not that big a difference, but subject to the winds and rains that you talk about there. And take layers. And if you're going to Gibraltar, take layers with you.
Yeah. I put that in one of my videos that I haven't made yet. I made that video that was just biking around Gibraltar, because that was the most fun thing I've ever done. We covered so many trails where it would take you hours and hours to walk all these miles of trails. You could do it on a bike so easy. And that e-bike helped getting up the hill, because it bikes to go up that hill. And I know some people just take the cable car up and walk down, but still walking down is, your feet are into your toes or into the top of your shoes, and still can get a blister by the end. Biking was phenomenal. And he's
a lovely guy. The shop that you found, is that in Casemate Square, the e-bike shop with that fantastic view out the front there?
Which one?
The e-bike guy who you met, who you hired your bikes from.
Yeah. Did you watch the video?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So, he was literally you'd have to go across the roundabout and in through Casemate Square. So you come about. In fact, when I first went to pick up my e-bike, information, I walked around the block 3 times in front of his place. I just didn't see it, blended into this huge building. But he had that gorgeous view. And it's just the little main circle and then the entrance to Casemate Square and the farmer's market.
Amazing. Okay. And more views then on your slideshow here. That's beautiful, isn't it? It's rugged as well, isn't it? And this is where we get the sense that it's called the Rock for a good reason. And here are some pictures of the Rock.
Now, did you see behind there? It's the one place where you see 3 continents, right? So that mountain in the back is Africa. So, or 3 countries. Sorry, not 3 continents. 3 countries. So that's Africa. Yeah. And then off to the left, I think a lot of people don't know, that in North Africa, Spain has a territory called Ceuta,
Right.
CEA. So Ceuta, Spain, and then from this, the point of the very, very point of Europa point. So that one I learned you can go on the #1 bus. I ended up going to it 3 times on these bike tours, but you just take this, you get a bus pass for the day, you buy it right on there, 6 euros, unlimited rides. You get on this #2 bus and it takes you straight to here. This is where it ends. And I found a great little cafe in the university, and it had views like this. It was probably the best views in all of Gibraltar as far as Africa.
Stunning, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful. And let's have more pictures of the rock then. And there's another walk or bike way up to the top.
That we biked on that. Yeah, that bikes through, and that's in the video as well. And then from the right, you'll kind of see I'm standing at the skywalk, which was all included in that tour. So you can pay 15 euros for one thing, 15 for the caves, 10 to get into the park. And by the time you add up all the costs, it's so much cheaper just to go on this bike ride and have a guide.
Okay, all right. There's another view.
And they didn't pay me to do that. I just loved it so much. I just was like, I'm doing a video about this.
It looks amazing. It's a stunning place, isn't it? It's a stunning place, and so interesting that if you catch it not in quite the right way as those people you met, Gibraltar, they just didn't find the right places to go to, and they needed to see a video like this. Then, of course, there are these characters, aren't there? That you will
I love them.
So what's this about? Why are there monkeys in Gibraltar? What happened, and what's the significance of these little characters?
So they say that the monkeys, there has to be a certain amount of population on the rock, or it won't be free anymore. Like there's this whole, they've been brought over gifts and this and that, and they run free. It's actually the only primate park in Europe where they run free, and you can engage with them. Although they engage with you because
So I've heard.
Thieves, little thieves. If you have anything that looks like something interesting, they'll just grab it.
Amazing. And did that happen to you? Did they try and steal any of your stuff?
I didn't have anything but my water box. And as soon as I got off my bike, there's my water box, because the boxes are more environmental, was on the back of my bike. So I grabbed it. But one guy had turned his back for a second. The monkey grabbed his water box and he was gone. He's like, what just happened? They're like, the monkey stole your water. And I have that in my video where the monkey's trying to rip it open. And then he finally rips it open. He's dragging it up the mountain, spilling all the water. It's like
they've just got this cache of stuff that they're taking off tourists all day long over there.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what else to do in Gibraltar? We've got the monkeys there, and you can go and hang out with the monkeys who are roaming free. Uniquely here in Gibraltar. Casemate Square sounds like a place to go. The ride with the guide seems like something to do. Anything else people should know about if they're going to Gibraltar, this wonderful part of Iberia?
I think it's really important because of the history that, it's had over 13 sieges. And I'm always a fan of, as soon as you get there, go to their local museum. And their museum was small enough to be able to get through in a couple hours. And it had a lot of history. It had some videos. They have a remake of the Flint, and I can't remember what they called them on, but they found prehistoric, I think Neanderthals. And then they have the proof that, hey, this just wasn't, I think like we all kind of know, this culture just wasn't going, they were creative.
It's just the movies, isn't it?
They had rituals. They had, I think there's a lot more to the past that we know intelligent.
Yeah, that we misunderstand.
So go to the museum. I definitely like just cruising around on the bus. The bikes were epic. You can get everywhere by the bike. Like I said, I did a tour the next day. I said, book me in, but you need at least 4. And the next day he says, oh, you were so much fun. We'll take you by yourself. I'm like, score. Because I was going down the hills. Like some of them were afraid to go down the hill because you have to ride your bike, but I ride it all the time. I literally am a little kid when I get on my bike. So I waited for all of them go down a couple, the cutbacks, and I went full speed, and I was literally going, wee.
You're amazing.
I'm surprised he took me back because that could be dangerous, but I agreed to be the back. He was in the front, I was in the back to make sure that everybody, was okay. And we had to help him a couple times because there's a little bit of thought in, push this while you're not pedaling. This is, always happy.
Okay. You've got such a knack, though, of finding people and making incredible videos.
Those people that said they didn't know what to do, I physically walked them in. I was just getting off the bus as well. I take them some stuff to the car because you park on the outside. It's impossible to park inside. It's expensive, but you can do $15 a day on the outside. Anyways, dropping some stuff off in the car. And so I hopped the little bus that goes across the runway back into town again. That's where I met the couple. So I said, I'll take you into Casemate Square. I'm going to be in the area. Walked them through, showed them where the taxi stand was with the tour guide. So they could just be handed off. Here's someone who's going to show you. Clearly, you've done no pre-research. So they were up and around. I had a few things I was doing, ran into them again later in the day, and then we ended up having a beer together. So they told us their adventures. And it's fun when you see people, and their night and day change when they saw how much more there was to do. And then I gave them all my maps and said, here's where you need to go.
More people who are going to remember you in the future. Didn't we bump into you in Gibraltar like the other guy? You're amazing. And these wonderful videos that you make, where can people see these, Veronica?
Oh, that's just American in Portugal. It's
American in Portugal. If you type that onto YouTube, you're going to find Veronica. In these last few minutes, then, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here this morning. I think it's fair to say you are Iberian.
I am. I love it all.
We've got a couple of stories here about the relationship between Spain and Portugal. Looks like it looks like Europe continues to dominate the preferences of Spaniards here, according to the Portugal News, with Portugal leading its digital booking. So the Spaniards loving to come over here to Portugal, for one thing. And we have another news story as well. This is an interesting one that we may talk about at greater length at some other point. And this is to do with Portugal apparently being more competitive than Spain, reveals the EU as well. Just read the first para of this. I think we'll come back to this. Portugal was the country that most developed in terms of new product development through technologies. Portugal has overtaken Spain in the European Regional Index for Competitiveness because of the way its companies have focused on specialization. Portugal has a more competitive economy than 6 years ago. According to data from the European Commission, Portugal has made substantial improvements in terms of innovation and sophistication of its business network, which has enabled it to increase its level of competitiveness by around 13% on the European average and overtake Spain in the ranking. There's another reason why Portuguese people will be feeling quietly proud about their country, which is much smaller in population, but is still punching above its weight and beating Spain there. Last couple of minutes then, thank you for being here on this inaugural episode of the Iberian FM Phone-in. Will you be back, Veronica, after doing a little bit more touring by Iberian as you are of Spain? Will you come back and tell us about your adventures in Spain as well?
Of course I will. So Semana Santa is going on right now, right? So if you can get to Seville, that's the fabulous, I've been reading all the history because I walked into it one year accidentally, and here's all these people with pokey hats and candles. And I'm like, that doesn't look so great. Based on coming from America, right?
Yes. Yes, right.
And so, and that's where you kind of go, hey, let's study this stuff before we walk into it. And so this year it just happened again that I'll be going tomorrow to Seville and be right in the middle of Semana Santa again. And I was surprised I even got a hotel again because we're going to be right by the airport and we have an early flight. So that's why we said, let's go to Seville, hang out in Seville, do everything there, and then catch the early flight to Barcelona. Barcelona is a quick and easy flight. Vueling, it's like 20 euros. I think that's the big thing to remember. Whether in Portugal or Spain, so easy to fly around. And being where I'm at on the two borders, I have the option of the Faro Airport, an hour in that direction, or Seville, an hour and a half in the other direction. And there's so much to see here in the Iberian Peninsula that, I've been traveling literally, not during COVID, but the entire time I've lived here, and I haven't scratched the surface. There's Toledo, which is the old capital of Spain. And most people don't know that. They think it's always been Madrid. It's this cool medieval town that's been kept medieval because it outgrew its borders and they moved it to Madrid. It's got the cool, cliffs and moat. And then you've got Cordoba, a place where all three cultures, the Jewish and the Moorish and the Christians live together in harmony as this great example of, you just get in your car and you go. There's Huelva right there, 45 minutes away, where Christopher Columbus took off, and where they've got copies of the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and your kids can walk and run around them and go, wow, they crossed the ocean in this,
Oh, wow.
There's so much. So, but I think in your point real quick with what's happening here and why people are choosing Portugal, it's still safety-wise, number one. So Marbella, you have to be a little careful because they have a lot of the drug criminals come in. Yeah. And the English language proficiency. So it's people learn English here in the school. It's mandatory now. And it's one of the most proficient English-speaking countries. They do a national poll and it's always in the top few. So we can kind of hobble along as we learn Portuguese or Spanish. When you're in Spain, you can't hobble along. They don't speak English. They're not trained in English. It's more the, it's just not the norm. It's more the, what's the word I'm looking for? The
exception.
It's it's the exception, not the rule.
Incredible.
And so you better, have your app and have practiced, at least your basics for getting around in Spain.
Another key difference.
English.
Yeah, another key difference between the two countries. This is fascinating. You have been the most amazing inaugural guest for the Iberian FM phone-in. Caller, sorry, I can't take your call now. The Iberian FM phone-in is going to be 10 till 10:30. So thank you for trying, but please try again tomorrow. We have got to go now, haven't we? We've got to go explore.
Too long. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Certainly not. You did not. You've been a fantastic guest this morning. We're looking forward to having you back with your adventures in Spain. And that, I take it, Veronica, that's always been the plan, that you have been Iberian from the get-go. You've come to Portugal as a brilliant jumping off point for all of the Iberian Peninsula. Is that correct?
Well, I came in to do travel blogging. So the idea was to be in a place where you could go everywhere. But I went all along the whole Algarve and I found this hidden gem. Villarreal, my town. I found it because it was priced effectively. Where else do you get a river and an ocean at a really low cost? And then Spain is kind of the twofer. So it evolved in that. It wasn't what I was originally thinking. I was just thinking to travel to all of Europe. If you have an airport, you can go anywhere. But then it ended up here being a perfect fit.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So looking forward to the continued adventures of Veronica, the American in Portugal and all over the Iberian Peninsula. Have a great day. Thank you for being a sport and jumping on. Thank you for your lovely pictures. And we'll speak to you again soon. And thanks everybody for tuning in. You've been part of making history here, the Iberian FM phone-in. Catch us on weekdays, 10 a.m. in Portugal and 11 a.m. in Spain. Did you like our music, Veronica? Should we dance our way out into the new week? Pretty good, isn't it?
I love to dance. So anytime you've got dancing, let's go.
Lovely big round of applause for you. Thank you so much. Muito obrigado. Gracias to you. Muchas gracias as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.